World Geography, South Asia, Geographic Foundations. Here are the learning objectives. 1. Describe the process through which India and Pakistan gained their independence from Great Britain. 2. Why is Kashmir referred to as disputed territory? 3. List the reasons which explain why Bangladesh fought for its independence from West Pakistan. 4. Name and describe the physical features of the Indian subcontinent and identify their location on a map. 5. How do monsoons and cyclones affect the lives of the inhabitants of the Indian subcontinent? Political maps. Here you have a political map of the Indian subcontinent. You should be able to identify the various nations on the Indian subcontinent. So look for Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, also Nepal and Bhutan, which are nestled in the Himalaya Mountains in the north. And in the south, you should be able to locate Sri Lanka and the Maldives archipelago. Here's another map of India, just India, and so you can see its location next to other countries in the region like Pakistan and even China. Here's a map of Pakistan, and you can see a light green area at the very top of Pakistan in the north, and that's the disputed territory of Kashmir. And so you can see Pakistan is kind of wedged there between India and Afghanistan. And then here's the smaller country of Bangladesh. And you can see its location to India and kind of next to Burma or Myanmar, and all of this below China. Physical map. Okay, here's a physical map of the region, South Asia. Should be able to identify some of the main physical features. The Himalaya Mountains, definitely. Also, you should be able to identify the Indus River Valley and also the Indo-Gangetic Plain, which receives its water from the Brahmaputra River and from the Ganges River. Both of these two areas are big farming regions. In the south, you should be able to locate the Deccan Plateau, surrounded on the west and the east by the Western Ghats and the Eastern Ghats Mountains. The subcontinent. Overview. South Asia, it's a political region that includes 7 countries. I'll name them again: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. This area is also sometimes called a subcontinent. A subcontinent is a large landmass that's smaller than a continent. And South Asia, even though it's about half the size of the continental United States, it has more than 1 billion inhabitants. India and Pakistan. Control of the subcontinent. Since the mid-1700s, until independence for Pakistan and India in 1947, it was Britain that controlled the Indian subcontinent. They were the colonial power. You'll notice that during this time also, Britain controlled many other areas of the world. Even here in the United States, they had the 13 colonies. So Britain was a worldwide imperial power. Britain did bring some positive changes to the subcontinent. They ended slavery. they improved the schools, and they built an extensive railroad network. However, most of the time, like all people, they acted out of their own self-interest, and they didn't always do things that improved the lives of the Indians or the occupants of the inhabitants of the Indian subcontinent. Textiles. Indians, they were among the first people in the world to grow cotton, probably right there in the Indus River Valley or on the Indo-Gangetic Plain. So prior to the arrival of the British, India already had a flourishing textile industry. This is the production of cloth or clothing. Britain used India as a market for their own cheaper machine-made textiles. You have to remember, late 1700s, 1800s, this is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in England and in Europe. So they were able to produce clothing at a much cheaper price using their machinery. They could just basically churn this stuff out. So what the colonial system did is it imported raw cotton from India, then it made it into cloth in the English factories, and then it shipped this cheaper machine-made garments back to India. In the meantime, millions of Indians lost their jobs to these cheap imports. Discrimination leads to nationalism. Indians were discriminated against in their own country. They could only really serve in the lowest levels of government. During the late 1800s, Indians, though, they slowly began to develop a sense of nationalism, a pride in their country and in themselves. And Western ideas of individual rights and self-government, these started to spread among India's English-speaking middle class. And one member of this enlightened middle class was Mahatma Gandhi. This man would eventually lead India to independence. Gandhi and nonviolent resistance. Gandhi believed in nonviolent resistance. He believed that this was a powerful weapon. Nonviolent resistance means opposing any enemy or oppressor by any means other than violence. This was a technique used by Martin Luther King Jr. to fight against racism in this country. Gandhi encouraged Indians to peacefully resist the British through a boycott, a refusal to purchase or use British cloth. He said Indians should spin their yarn at home and then make that into cloth or clothing. Religious hostility. There were economic differences on the Indian subcontinent, which led to hostility between the Hindus and the Muslims living there. The Muslims were generally the poorer peasants or the landless workers. The Hindus, they were often the landowners. So as independence for the whole subcontinent, as it grew in the 1940s, both groups began to fear being ruled by the other, and those tensions just started to rise even more. The partition. In 1947, sadly really, British and Indian leaders agreed to partition or divide into parts the Indian subcontinent. They divided it into separate Hindu and Muslim countries. Part of the subcontinent towards the south became the mostly Hindu Republic of India. And in the northwestern corner and the northeastern corner, these parts of the subcontinent, where most of the Muslims lived, these areas formed the nation of Pakistan, kind of an East Pakistan and a West Pakistan. Here you have a map of the Indian subcontinent showing where the different religious groups live. And you can see that in India, and parts of Nepal and other places. It's mostly Hindu. And then the purple areas, those would be the Islam areas or the Muslim areas. And you can see Pakistan and Bangladesh mostly include Muslims. But there's still many Muslims living in India today. Kashmir. Location. Kashmir is strategically located at the very foot of the Himalayas. It's a very beautiful area. It's surrounded by India, Pakistan, and China. India and Pakistan, they fought wars over this area to determine who will control it. On the right-hand side, you can see a map of Kashmir. It seems to be claimed by everyone, from Pakistanis to Indians to even Chinese claim part of this territory. Conflict. In 1947, upon independence, all of the states within India, they have states kind of like here in America, they were all given the choice of joining either the country of Pakistan or India. Usually the Muslim states joined Pakistan. The Hindu states would choose to remain a part of India. The people of Kashmir, they were mainly Muslim, but its leader, the Maharaja of Kashmir, he was a Hindu. So there was a little bit of a dilemma here. Would Kashmir join Pakistan or would it join India? The Maharaja, since he was the man in charge, he decided to cede Kashmir to India, and Pakistan immediately invaded because they claimed it was their territory. Nowadays, it's India that controls the majority of the territory, but the tensions remain high. Bangladesh. West Pakistan and East Pakistan. Upon independence, Pakistan consisted of two separate regions. West Pakistan and East Pakistan, they were separated by 1,100 miles of Indian territory. Islam really was the only thread that connected these two very different regions. Differences. There were lots of differences between the people of West Pakistan and East Pakistan. For instance, East Pakistan residents, they didn't speak Urdu, which was the national language. And East Pakistan was an area that was more agricultural, and it was economically less developed. But its residents were forced to pay higher taxes than the citizens in West Pakistan. Very unfair. Positions of power in the government and the army, these were held, again, almost exclusively by the West Pakistanis. Birth of Bangladesh. So many people in East Pakistan, they felt their region was treated as a colony of West Pakistan. So in 1970, more than 300,000 East Pakistanis, they died in a devastating flood caused by a cyclone and storm surge. Many East Pakistanis, they believed that the central government, which was based in West Pakistan, delayed shipments of food and relief supplies deliberately. So with the help of India, East Pakistan went to war with West Pakistan. And on December 16, 1971, East Pakistan became the independent country of Bangladesh. Mountains and plateaus. Tectonic plates collide. Millions of years ago, South Asia was actually part of East Africa, but the subcontinent split off, drifted northward through the oceans, and collided with Central Asia. This gradual collision of two large tectonic plates, it forced the land upward into enormous mountain ranges. Today, this forms the northern edge of the Indian subcontinent. Here's a map of the tectonic plate collision we just spoke about and the formation of the Himalayas. You can see the Indian plate diving beneath the Eurasian plate, kind of forcing these mountains upwards. Himalayas. The Himalayas contain the world's highest mountains, and the highest peak is Mount Everest. They stretch for 1,500 miles, and they form a barrier between the Indian subcontinent and China. It's really difficult to cross over these mountains. They're so high that very few people do it. Here's an interesting map to show this region. It's the Himalayas at night. You can see kind of on the left, you see all these lighted cities, and those are the cities in India and maybe in Pakistan. See, it's very populated. And then through the middle of the image, diagonally, you have the Himalaya mountains. And then on the upper right-hand side, that's China. And not as many people live on the Chinese side. You can tell there's no electricity because that's a plateau, and a plateau that's really high. It's one of the highest plateaus in the world. Because it's so high, there's not much oxygen to breathe. And so lots of people live in India on that side, but not as many people live on the what's called the Tibetan Plateau in China. Hindu Kush and Karakoram. The Hindu Kush Mountains, they lie at the western edge of the Himalayas, kind of between Pakistan and Afghanistan. They're one of the major land routes through these mountains from from Pakistan to Afghanistan is the Khyber Pass. If you can control the Khyber Pass region, you can control most of the trade between those two countries. The Karakoram Mountains, they're in the northeastern portion of the Himalaya range, and they're home to the second highest peak in the world, K2. Deccan Plateau. If you go to South India, right in the middle of the peninsula is the Deccan Plateau. This plateau tilts a little bit eastwards towards the Bay of Bengal, so when it rains, the rivers move in that direction. There are two mountain ranges, the Western Ghats and the Eastern Ghats, and these flank the plateau. They separate it from the coast. Also, the mountains, especially on the western side, just like the mountains behind Los Angeles, California, these mountains block moist ocean winds, and they prevent rain from reaching the interior, the Deccan Plateau. So the Deccan Plateau is kind of an arid region, dry. Rivers, deltas, and plains. Rivers. There are three great rivers of South Asia, and they all have their origins among the snow-capped peaks of the high Himalayas. So where does that moisture, where does that water in the rivers comes from? It comes from the melting of the snow, obviously, in the Himalayas. Let's look at these three rivers. The Indus. The Indus flows west and then south. Basically, it flows through Pakistan to the Arabian Sea. It's supported many, many ancient civilizations. Big farming, agricultural area. Not to be outdone, you have the Ganges River, which drops from the central Himalayas and flows across northern India. And also the Brahmaputra nearby, which goes east and west and then finally flows south through Bangladesh. So you have the Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra. Here's a picture of the Indus River Valley, and you can see at the top are the Himalayas, and then you can see the green ribbon of vegetation as the river flows towards the Arabian Sea. And those are all the crops that are grown along the river and irrigated with the water. Alluvial plains. South Asian rivers, they provide crucial irrigation, water, for agricultural lands. And they carry the fertile soil, or alluvium, on their journey down from the mountains. They push that soil onto these plains. When the rivers overflow their banks, they then deposit that rich soil onto what's referred to as the alluvial plains. Indo-Gangetic Plain. The Indo-Gangetic Plain, it lies between the Deccan Plateau in the south and the northern mountain ranges, the Himalayas. It's formed by the Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra rivers, and it's one of the most bountiful farming regions in the world. The plain is really one of the most heavily populated parts of South Asia. Lots of people doing farming there. Cities of New Delhi, Calcutta in India, and Dhaka in Bangladesh, these are located on the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Extreme weather. The monsoon. South Asia is home to an annual cycle of powerful and destructive weather caused by the monsoon. The summer monsoon is a wind system, and it blows from the southwest towards the north, across the Indian Ocean, picking up moisture along the way, and brings that moisture towards the Indian subcontinent. This happens between June and September. So it's winds that bring rain. These rain also can cause massive flooding. In the winter, things turn around. It's like the opposite. And the winter monsoon is a wind system that blows from the northeast. It comes across the Himalayas, and this is a very dry area, so there's no moisture in the air. And so this is the dry time of the year, from October through February. Now it's important to remember the monsoons, they're not rain. They're not rainstorms. They're winds. So the monsoon is a wind system that may bring rain, but sometimes of the year it just brings dry air. Here's a map of the winter monsoon and the summer monsoon. You can see the differences in precipitation if you take a moment and look at the legend and the colors on the map. Cyclones. Accompanying the summer monsoon, unfortunately, are also another dramatic weather event, cyclones, and they form in the open water off the eastern coast of India in the Bay of Bengal. And of course, cyclones, we call them hurricanes in North America, they create tremendous devastation. They can destroy the farmland, wipe out villages, cause massive flooding, all of that. Saving lives. So South Asians, they've done some things. These are poor people in general, and they've done some things and taken some steps to prevent or lessen the damage caused by flooding, either flooding coming from the summer monsoon or flooding from cyclones. So a lot of people, especially near coastal areas or near the rivers, they've built their houses on stilts. That's not a very costly thing to do. In some areas, especially in Bangladesh, it's been very effective. They've erected strong concrete cyclone shelters in different communities that people can go to when it floods, and so their lives are saved. And then dams have been constructed to control floodwaters. The end. Thank you very much for your attention.